Hey, have you ever thought about your body turning into a fossil? Yeah, it sounds pretty cool, but becoming a fossil is harder than winning the jackpot. Seriously, fossils are super rare, like a 1 in a billion chance. But here's the thing. This Earth has seen a ton of creatures come and go, from giant dinosaurs to tiny bacteria. I mean, right now there are billions upon billions of animals sharing this planet with us. So it's no surprise that fossils keep popping up everywhere, enough to fuel an entire fossil hunting industry. But here's the catch. Even though there are so many, most fossils we find are kind of boring. Like, oh, another dinosaur, seen a million of those already? Even when we discover a new species, it's usually just a variation of something familiar, like, yup, another hadrosaur, big whoop. But every once in a while, super rarely, we dig up something that makes the entire scientific world scratch their heads like, what the heck is this? These finds aren't just new. They're so bizarre that paleontologists sit there thinking, well, I studied my whole life and I still don't get it. And today, we're diving into a few of these fossil freaks, the kind of stuff that makes scientists sweat bullets and might make you shiver, or laugh until you cry. If we had to pick a prime example of a weird fossil, nothing beats the Tully Monster, affectionately nicknamed the Tully Monster. Just the name alone sounds creepy, right? This thing doesn't just look scary, it's been driving scientists nuts because no one can figure out what it is. The story starts back in 1966, when an amateur collector was poking around in Mason Creek, Illinois. He didn't just find one fossil, he dug up a whole bunch of these bizarre things. You could tell they were creatures, but what kind of creatures? The guy took his weird rocks to the Field Museum of Natural History, thinking the experts would crack the code in no time. But surprise, they were stumped too. The Tully Monster has a body shaped like a cigar, triangular fins, eyes sticking out on long stalks, and a mouth attached to a freaky proboscis like it just crawled out of a horror game like Subnautica. Lucky for us, it was tiny, only about 35 centimeters long because if it was bigger, it'd haunt our dreams. Still, its bizarre appearance grabbed attention worldwide, but guess what? No one can agree on what it is. Some say it's a squid, others call it a mollusk, a worm, or even a vertebrate. Basically, we're clueless. The only thing scientists agree on is that this thing definitely lived in water. Illinois today might be all prairies, but hundreds of millions of years ago, it was a shallow tropical sea. The Tully Monster seems to have been a free swimmer, not stuck to the ocean floor, and sometimes got washed ashore by waves, leaving behind a ton of fossils. Nearly 90 years later, we still don't know much more, except that it's part of the biota group, which sounds fancy but doesn't tell us much since 98% of animals are in that group. A few folks have boldly claimed, I've cracked it, but none of those theories have held up. On the bright side, we think it might have been a predator, hunting prey in murky waters. But beyond that, it's still a giant mystery. But the weirdness doesn't stop in Illinois. Over in Montana, in the 1970s, they dug up another fossil that made scientists want to pull their hair out. They called it Typhloesus, or as some nicknamed it, the alien goldfish. Just the name tells you it's not normal, right? This fossil was found in Bear Gulch, and it's even older than the Tully Monster, dating back to the Serpicovian period, about 330 million years ago. This thing is so weird that researchers at first just wanted to leave it alone to avoid the headache. It has a spindle-shaped body, super tiny, with a single tail at the end, suggesting it swam freely like the Tully Monster. But here's where things get messy. Typhloesus has no external limbs, no anus, and worse, it has an organ no one's ever seen before, dubbed the pharaohiscus. Sounds cool, but nobody knows what it does, only that it's packed with iron. It's like Earth said, here's a puzzle with no solution, good luck. At first, scientists thought, fine, let's just shove it into the conodont group, those jawless critters that are everywhere. They even got excited when they found a specimen with conodont-like teeth thinking they'd solved it. But nope, life's not that easy. A researcher realized those teeth weren't Typhloesus's. They belonged to prey it had swallowed, sitting in its gut. So, back to square one, except now we know it was definitely a predator. For 3 decades, there was no progress on Typhloesus. But then, in 2022, a bombshell claim dropped. Maybe, just maybe, it's a type of squid. Why? They found a toothy, tongue-like structure, like something that shoots out to grab prey. Sounds wild, But some modern squids have a similar feature called a radula. Problem is, radulae psi also show up in non-squid species, so calling Typhloesus a squid is still a stretch. In short, this alien goldfish remains a brain-busting puzzle, leaving scientists shouting, "Earth, why are you so weird?" And the story doesn't end there because back at Maison Creek, where the Tully Monster was found, they dug up two more freaky fossils that left scientists so baffled they just named them after the alphabet. Yup, these two are called Ediacaran and Escanatia, or as some call them, the H and Y animals. Sounds hilariously absurd, doesn't it? First up is Ediacaran, the H animal, and let me tell you, it's a total weirdo in the looks department. This fossil literally looks like the letter H, but with a weird pouch sticking out in the middle like a mutant H. No one knows why it's shaped like this or what its parts are for. Researchers can only guess it might have eaten floating particles or tiny critters in the water, and it probably lived in groups since its fossils come in all sizes, from super small to a bit bigger. Oh, and that pouch in the middle? It's not just one shape. It can be round, heart-shaped, or probably other weird forms too. Talk about personality. Scientists think Ediacaran might belong to the Hemichordata group, like a distant cousin of acorn worms or branchial arches. But that's just a maybe, not a sure thing. Now, let's talk about Escanacia, the Y animal. It looks a bit more normal than the others, but it's an absolute nightmare when it comes to classification. At first glance, it resembles a sea anemone, but then scientists noticed it has features sea anemones don't, like bilateral symmetry, a complete gut, and, brace yourself, an anus. So much for the sea anemone theory. It went out the window. Its mouth is a big slit sitting between two arms. But honestly, no one knows what those arms are for or if they're even arms at all. Right now, all we know about Escanacia is that it's an animal. It has a mouth, it has an anus, and that's about it. Oh, by the way, if you're listening to this and haven't hit the follow button yet, come on, please. Less than 20% of you guys do it. Do us a favor and give it a tap, all right? Anyway, the Cambrian period was totally bizarre, but believe it or not, there's another era that gave scientists even bigger headaches. Buckle up because we're about to dive deeper into the world of freaky fossils. Okay, let's rewind even further, way back to the Ediacaran period, which stretched from 635 to 538 million years ago. This is when fossils of large, visible to the naked eye creatures started showing up in droves. Honestly, this period was a carnival of weirdness, and if you thought the Tully Monster was strange, get ready, because we're about to meet some things that are even wilder. The star of the show has to be Nectocaris, a creature I can only describe as the final boss of an Elden Ring game, but made of flesh and looking like a plant. When its fossil was dug up, scientists could only gasp, "This looks more like an alien's house than an animal." It has these holes on top, like some abandoned extraterrestrial building. But when they studied it closer, they found its plant stem was actually a calcified skeleton. Yep, this is the earliest evidence of an animal skeleton we know of. Things got even creepier when they found fossils of its body parts. Turns out Nectocaris was a legit monster, covered in sticky tentacles and rows of sharp spines. Like if you touched it, you'd get ripped to shreds. Those holes on top I mentioned? They're these terrifying biological windows filled with organic material, coming in all sorts of shapes: round, heart-shaped, hexagonal, heptagonal, you name it. No one knows what they were for, but I'm hoping, for the sake of its neighbors, they had nothing to do with eating. Oh, and Nectocaris had this superpower of changing size depending on where it lived, popping up in every nook and cranny, though it loved deep sea spots like dark ocean trenches. But here's the million-dollar question. What was it? It looks like a glitched-out coral, but studies say it's way more complex than coral. So, all we know is that it was a living thing, and it looked absolutely horrifying. But Nectocaris wasn't the only weirdo in the Ediacaran. The period was packed with oddballs, like Dickinsonia, which looks like a bathroom rug but could crawl. Then there's Vendia, Spinia, and a whole gang lumped into the Pro-Articulata group. These guys were insanely diverse, but what drives me nuts is how they look super symmetrical, but are actually slightly off, like a design flaw. It's just unacceptable. And here's the kicker. Many of them were likely evolutionary dead ends, leaving no descendants. Honestly, that might be for the best, because who'd want to run into these things in real life? Now, let's rewind even further, way back to the Rhyatian period, about 2.1 billion years ago. This is when Earth was truly a freak show. Like everything was so bizarre you'd just want to scream, "What is going on?" The name of this period translates to lava flow, so you can imagine how chaotic it was. At this time, in Gabon, Africa, scientists found an area full of shattered black rocks, which they called the Francevillian biota. Inside these rocks were countless strange structures: circular discs, elongated discs, tubes, strings of pearls, and even something that looked like a flower. Sounds artistic, right? The problem is no one's sure if these are even fossils. At first, the research team claimed these were living multicellular organisms, possibly eukaryotes, which sounds impressive but is a bold claim, since this site is 400 million years older than the next oldest multicellular fossil. But not everyone's on board with that idea. Some folks say, nah, these are just inorganic products like pyrite minerals or stuff formed by geological processes. Studying something 2 billion years old is a total nightmare. How do you even tell if it was alive? The debate's been bouncing back and forth forever, but recently, studies have started leaning toward these being actual fossils, thanks to isotope analysis showing they're rich in zinc, a sign of eukaryotic-style metabolism. Just last year, a scientist even claimed this site had the perfect recipe for life. Imagine that, a discovery that makes us sit back and wonder, so, are these really fossils? Anyway, if the Francevillian biota are indeed creatures, we can guess a bit about how they lived. With their disc-like shapes and no signs of movement, they probably weren't free-swimming. Instead, they might have been planktonic, floating in shallow, warm water columns. A rare setup back then, since Earth barely had any land masses at the time. The funny thing is, while these fossils drive us nuts with their bizarre shapes, there are other fossils that look kind of familiar but still make scientists sweat just as much. Get ready, because we're about to meet the next guy who's both familiar and totally weird. All right, let's zip back to the Cambrian period to meet another fossil star, Nectocaris. This fossil was found in 1910 at the Burgess Shale, a place so packed with fossils you'd think it's a paleontology supermarket. At first, Nectocaris was ignored because so many other things were dug up at the same time. But then, a British paleontologist dusted it off, studied it, and said, "Huh, this looks like a stretched-out shrimp." So they named it Nectocaris, meaning swimming shrimp. Sounds pretty cute, right? But life's never that simple. This scientist noticed Nectocaris had some mollusk-like features, but its fins were off, like completely backwards from what you'd expect. So, he just left it unclassified, a mystery. Then one day, an Italian paleontologist looked at the fossil photos and boldly declared, "I've got it. This is a chordate," a distant relative of animals with a spinal cord, based on its tail, fins, and something he called a notochord. That theory held up for over 20 years, and it seemed like a done deal, right? Wrong? In 2010, drama exploded. They dug up over 91 new, crystal-clear Nectocaris fossils. And guess what? It didn't look like a wonky shrimp at all. It looked like a squid. Yup, this thing had 2 tentacles, a flat kite-shaped body, 2 eyes on stalks, and weirdest of all, no visible mouth, just a huge proboscis that might have flipped inside out. Creepy, right? Since it resembled a cephalopod, a squid relative, everyone thought, okay, case closed. This is the oldest squid ever, 30 million years earlier than any other cephalopod. But you guessed it, things got messy again. Nectocaris' shape doesn't match how cephalopods evolved. It's like finding a modern human fossil before primates even existed. Something's just not right. So, the cephalopod theory got shot down, and we're back to square one. The only small update came in 2019 when they found a similar fossil named Nectocotis, and these two buddies were grouped into a new family called Nectocarididae. But still, no one knows exactly what they are. Fossils like this make you want to scream, "Earth, please give me a hint!" So we've waded through an ocean of bizarre fossils, from the Tully Monster that looks like a horror game creature, to Namacalathus, the alien meat plant, to the Francevillian biota, which we're still arguing over whether they're even living things. Honestly, I find these things both terrifying and fascinating. like Earth is trolling us with unsolvable puzzles. Personally, I love the idea that billions of years ago, this planet was a playground for creatures we can't even imagine. It makes me wonder, could we one day be the mysterious fossils puzzling someone in the future? Funny to think about, but who knows, right? What drives me crazy is that no matter how far science has come, we're still standing in front of these fossils, scratching our heads like, probably an animal? Or something? It's a reminder that the universe, or at least Earth, always finds a way to surprise us. I bet you guys think it's pretty cool to imagine how weird and diverse life used to be, don't you? If you're hooked on paleontology stories like this, please hit that follow button. Only less than 20% of you do it, and every follow is a huge boost to keep us sharing tales about these fossil freaks. Oh, and if you've got any wild theories about the Tully Monster or Nectocaris, drop a comment so I can read and laugh with you, okay? Thanks for joining me on this wild ride through the world of super weird fossils. Catch you on the next adventure, when we dig up more mysteries from the past.